everyone, it's Bryan Kluger here, and I have some excellent news and a new video just for you! And as you can tell, this video might have something to do with Nightmare on Elm Street. I got to have a fun as hell virtual conversation with the living legend, the man that haunts everyone's dreams, Mr. Robert Englund, the guy who played Freddy Krueger.
This is my favorite. They even tried holy water.
He just does it better than I do. We talked about his first foray into the acting world, losing his virginity, the Netflix and chill recipe, his new TV series, JJ Villard's Fairy Tales, which is on Adult Swim. Check it out.
Now come over here and pop my blackheads.
All right.
You're hungry, aren't you?
And we also talk about Nightmare on Elm Street. And maybe if you stay till the end of the video, Freddy Krueger himself just might make an appearance. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
From the prime time, bitch!
Robert, so great to have you here. First off, just want to ask, how are you? And are you doing all right in all of this lock-in situation?
I'm Swiss chard quesadillas, chilled white wine, and Netflix have saved me.
Well, right on. The Netflix and chill and wine. I like this.
Yeah, I'm kind of addicted. I'm kind of obsessive about Westworld. I haven't quite figured where they're going.
None of that's hard.
Found some really new, nasty Scandinavian noir buried deep in the files of Netflix and I'm one of the other streaming things. Really, it's all Volvos, snow, and blood.
All right, so that's the Netflix and chill. That's the snow, blood, and white wine.
Yeah, Volvos.
And Volvos.
We're always in Volvos. And what's fun about it is it's really got me, I really made peace with reading subtitles. And now I use them when I'm watching Peaky Blinders or some of my Brit stuff, whenever there's an extreme accent. And it's like second nature now. And I think it's really opened the world. That we're saying this earlier, when the people won for the Oscars this year and last year, that it's time for us to start reading subtitles. And I think that's true.
I agree with that. I've gotten a lot from subtitles.
No more excuses.
No more excuses. So let me ask you, where did it all begin for you with acting and film? Was it something you saw, something you watched when you were a young kid, going to the movies for the first time? Where did it all begin for Robert?
Well, I think I was supposed to be a lawyer. And I think that I fell in love with acting doing children's theater. I was sent with an older girl. She would have been 14 and I was just beginning middle school. So I would have been going in the 7th grade, 12 and a half. And she was a wannabe actress. And she was beautiful. The most beautiful girl in the San Fernando Valley, dating older boys. And I think her mom thought that to keep her out of trouble, she would send her to this professional children's theater. And she could, work on her hobby, her wannabe hobby of being an actress. And I was forced to tag along. They figured that would be safer. She'd have to chaperone me. Well, I wound up getting all the starring roles. Peter Pan, Aladdin, Pinocchio, Hansel and Gretel. And at some point that summer, I lost my virginity and show business became my life.
Did you lose your virginity at one of the plays while rehearsing?
I literally went to a cast party and I was leaning against an exterior stucco wall when I lost my virginity. I also lost all the epidermis on my butt.
And that would
sliding down the wall, yeah, in ecstasy.
And that's what did it. A beautiful girl, and
it was actresses. I mean,
actresses.
I looked like a combination between Harpo Marx and Danny Kaye. Age of 12. But yeah, I was also a champion swimmer. I'd been a really good baseball player. But it was amazing. The first time you get that laugh, I had to run across the stage as Pinocchio. And I wore a little Tyrolean vest, yodelay, and my little hat with a feather in it, like Pinocchio, and my putty nose, and my shorts, my little suspenders. And then the Indians chased Pinocchio across the stage after I ran across. And I'd look out at the audience like, oh, whoa, whoa, and I'd run. And the Indians would all come across and shoot arrows at me. And then I would run back the other way, and I'd have a couple of arrows stuck in me. Well, they can't hurt me because I'm Pinocchio. I'm made of wood. Got a little laugh. I kind of like that. So the next night, in my styrofoam Tyrolean vest that we had one or two pre-placed arrows, I stuck 3 or 4 more. And I ran back across the stage, and my laugh was bigger. And I stuck a couple through my hat. Came running across the stage. My laugh was even bigger. Then I stuck a couple in my butt. I took a piece of foam, like surfboard foam, stuck it down the back of my shorts, stuck a couple of arrows in my butt. The laugh lasted 5 minutes, and that was it. I mean, that's as cheap and as vaudevillian and as low rent as you can get, but that's what hooked me. Combination of all the beautiful actresses in Southern California who'd been sent there by their parents, and getting that cheap laugh every night and building on it. The great Steve Allen from The Late Show, The Tonight Show, literally came to see a friend of his daughter in that play, came backstage in front of everybody and took me aside and said he never laughed so hard in his life. You'll make it. Told me, you're going to make it, kid. Adults are afraid to do this now. I mean, like 12 and a half years old, and Steve Allen. It's like having Johnny Carson come backstage and tell you you're great,
For sure. And I mean, what did that do to you, like in that moment?
In that moment, it didn't mean as much as it means now. Now I know more, but I know who Steve Allen was, and I watched his show. Tim Conway was one of his regular comedic members of his company. The great Louis Nye, one of the actors that went on to star in McHale's Navy. Just a great group of comedians that were on that show that he discovered. So I knew it was special, but the older I got, the more I knew about how great Steve Allen was and how ahead of the curve he was, bringing in Lenny Bruce and Joan Rivers and everybody. And but it's always one of those things, when adults take you aside and whisper in your ear, hey, if you can have this if you want it, kid.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. They're afraid to, because back when I was growing up, you were supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, and I was fast-tracked to be a lawyer. And I think that kind of opened the door for me. That and the early loss of my virginity with a 16-year-old girl from the Midwest.
Right, but with lawyers, I think their job is to tell a great story to a jury, just like actors tell a great story to an audience, and so I think there's a correlation there.
Well, I think the courtroom part I could do. It's all the college and all the studies and all the memorization of, especially business law and formal law. I think I knew back then I just didn't have the stamina or the willpower or the discipline for that.
So speaking of discipline, you said you were a really good swimmer, you were baseball, surfing is one of your favorite things to do, and acting, theater, film, television. What's the discipline that goes into these things that make you the perfect legend, intercontinental champion of film and TV?
I don't know. I don't know if there is a crossover. I have a lazy streak, and I used to, in high school, I'd go out for the swim team and make the swim team, and then I'd quit because I realized it was sixth period. It was the last hour and 10 minutes of the day, and I'd go in for roll call, and then I'd go out to the parking lot and take my lunch money and hand it to another surfer, and we'd all go to Malibu, or we'd go to County Line, or we'd go to Leo Carrillo, Secas, and go surfing, Point Doom, under Bob Dylan's house, before it was Bob Dylan's house. And so I had this lazy streak, and I've never been lazy in the theater. I've never cheated, never worked high, never drank before a show. And, you know, there's a lot of drinking in the theater and actually probably in film too. I like my cocktail, you know, and I like, for many years I liked my doobie, but never when I was working. I liked working. I liked what I was doing. So that's part of it, just loving what you do. And I love swimming, but I hated workouts for swimming. And I hated my coach. And surfing I loved. And surfing is not really competitive. You know, it's just you against the ocean, or you against that specific wave that you catch. And acting is very much a team sport. It's ensemble work. So they're very different. So I don't really think they correlate. I just think that I just like them both. But the only thing surfing did for me was it kept me limber. And there's a bit of dance and movement and styling and posing in surfing. And I think that either I brought that to acting, or acting brought that to my style when I surfed. It's something you have to, you know, kind of make peace with and embrace. You know, you have to pose a little bit.
Right.
Actor.
All right. Nice. I could see
There's
that.
a word they use when you'll see some guys in Westerns on horses, and people are working with horses on film, and they'll spin that horse and get it here, and then they turn back and look really cool. Hey, we call it profiling, but yeah, there's a little bit of that. It's like sometimes it's about truth, and sometimes it's about style, and then sometimes it is about finding yourself and where you are in the frame. You know, where am I in the frame? You know?
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about this new project that's coming out on Adult Swim called JJ Villard's Fairy Tales. And I know it's this amazing horror ingredients and nods to our favorite horror films mixed with like Disney and Grimm's fairy tales. And you are a part of this. How did you become a part of this, and how much fun did you have doing the voice work for it?
I had lots of fun. You know, I do a lot of voiceover work and games and narration. I just got done doing all the narration on my new series, True Terror, on the Travel Channel. A challenge, but I like it. I go way back to middle 1970s. I narrated John Milius's Warner Brothers surfing epic, Big Wednesday. But I love cartoons, and I've worked for Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and I worked for Adult Swim before. They kind of knew who I was. Somebody there in casting must have asked for me. Usually I play villains when I do games and cartoons and animation. This time, I just really had fun. And I go back, my sourcing of the fairy tales, of JJ Villard's Fairy Tales, my sourcing was the old Jay Ward, the guy that did Rocky and Bullwinkle, you know, Boris and Natasha. My sourcing was he did Fractured Fairy Tales. And they were very satirical and smart and fun, a little bit intellectual, but really funny. Mad Magazine played around with them a little bit. But I think what's happened with JJ is he wanted to really get into the kind of post Beavis and Butthead, punk, raw, kind of rough, gross sense of humor, and inject that into the Grimm's fairy tales along with the darkness. So it's a combination of both of those. And they're a little bit surreal. I got to work with the actual penciled storyboards, which is rare when you do animation voiceover work. Sometimes you come in at the end and you clean it up and you extend a laugh, or they'll add some lines or some grunts and some groans, and you get to see the finished product. But usually you're just working with an image of yourself. And I actually got to work with whole storyboarded sequences, so I got a sense of how wild and crazy and kind of Rick and Morty-ish it was going to be, you know, and it's just a real world unto itself. It's almost like profane graffiti that's come alive, you know. It's really fun stuff. But, you know, all the Grimm's fairy tales originally were very dark. They've all been cleaned up by Disney and helicopter parents, you know, and goody-goody liberals. And we made them all squeaky clean. But my God, Hansel and Gretel is about a famine in Germany.
Right.
And a cautionary tale. And if children if you don't behave yourself, you will leave this home. And what happens when you're a child and you're starving and you're on your own in the forest? What's the first ingredient of starvation? It's hallucinations. And what would you hallucinate if you're a child? A house made of pie and cake and strudel and ice cream and candy. And so they're all very dark, the Grimm's fairy tales, and warnings from the parents about the evil in the world. And that's a lot what Wes Craven was about with Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think there's a bit of that in our fairy tales, but there's also a surrealism that I really like that comes with the kind of loosey-goosey animation that JJ and his crew have used.
No, I like that aspect of it. And is there a certain freedom you get from doing voice work, such as in fairy tales, or something from your DC work or any of the other voice work that you do?
Well, the thing that's great about for me about voiceover work is there's a certain amount of your energy when you're working in front of a camera or on the stage where you're worried about your own vanity. You're worried about having the light in your eyes. You're worried about are you on your marks? Are you in the right part of the frame? Is the other actor shadowing your face by leaning into your key light? You're worried about a pimple that you got from eating too much chocolate. You're worried about your bald spot. Is my hair combed? You know, is this wardrobe that I'm wearing look right on me? It's not something necessarily that I would choose or pick. And when you do voiceover work, that's all out the door. So all of that energy that's devoted to that, any part of your third eye that comes into play when you work and act, that keeps you from following through on a punch in a fight scene, any of those monitors that you have from your vanity when you act on camera or on the stage, you don't have to use those. So you have all this energy you can deploy into your voice, into the rhythms in the script, into the rhythms delivered by the actor before you, setting up the actor that follows you, setting up the joke, landing the joke, choice. You've got your headphones on, you're listening to your timbre, you're playing with your voice in different octaves, you're playing with guttural parts of your voice in your throat, lisps, sibilances, timbres, all of these things you're playing with. So it's a little bit like music, and it's a lot about rhythm as well.
All right. I like that. I like the rhythm of it.
And you can show up in your shorts and your pajamas.
Perfect.
With a big giant zit like a test pilot for Clearasil.
And nobody would know the difference.
Nobody cares.
All right. So here, let me switch gears a little bit with you. So I think two of the most fascinating and curious fictional characters ever made are William Shakespeare's Iago and Freddy Krueger. And I think there is a lot of parallels with the two of them. And I'm curious if you think the same and if you think what you think they are.
Well, I mean, there is the parallel of there's a little bit of the imp in Iago, and there's a little bit of the imp in Freddie. And they both are master manipulators.
Right.
Freddie has all the knowledge of your subconscious and your dreams and your desires and your imagination and therefore your fears. Iago can mine that only so far, but they are using the same thing. Iago's manipulating Othello's personality and those that are close to him. So they are close. You know, I understudied Iago years ago at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival. That's where Tom Hanks came from a year or so after me. And I never got to go on, but I did get to rehearse it with a great actor, Roger Robinson, who won a Tony a couple of years ago for an August Wilson play. 2 Trains Running, I think. But anyway, he was an extraordinary actor. In the original pilot for Kojak, just a wonderful, brilliant, underrated African-American actor from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so I got to do it once with him. And then the rest of the time I had to sit backstage every night and just wait till the guy playing Othello went on before I could relax, you know, go out and smoke a joint in the alley, you know, because you're a nervous wreck. It's like every night's opening night. What if I have to go on? Because you're not nearly as well versed, no pun intended. It's classic verse by Shakespeare, but you're not nearly as well prepared as the actors that have been in the middle of a run of it. So it's just a terrible job under being an understudy. And now I think I'm too old to do him. He's got to be a little more vibrant and a little younger than I am. Probably could have done him 10 years ago, but I can't do him now.
I think you could, because I think you those two characters and you both exude this.
Oh, I think they make
charm.
Like Desdemona's father now, the Duke of Venice. No, I mean there's some older roles now that are interesting, you know, that I could play in Shakespeare.
Right.
I mean, I don't have the chops for a King Lear, but there are some older roles that are fun and interesting. There's some really fun kings to play, but no, Iago, I'm just a little long in the tooth for it.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I could do a couple of monologues on camera,
mm-hmm.
a really cool camera move, you know, or something in front of a castle wall, talk to the audience, but that's about it. I don't think I could sustain. Those shows are 2.5 hours, and
right.
he's in a lot of it.
Yes.
He ever leaves the stage, and I just don't think I have the chops for it any longer. And I think I'm too old. I think he's got to be not older than 45. Now I could have played 45 when I was almost 60, but I can't play 45 anymore.
All right. We'll see. I want to talk about music and your love of music, passion of music, because I know you have worked with Dokken, the Fat Boys, and you had your own album, Freddie's Greatest Hit, which I definitely own on vinyl. I love it.
That was New Line whoring me out, yeah. He didn't know what to do. New Line had never had a hit movie before. And they merchandised to the first people that knocked on their door back then. And they just threw everything up on the wall and see what stuck, like testing your pasta. And that was one of them. That was a little less embarrassing than some of the children's toys. But I don't sing. I danced a little bit at one point because I'd been a gymnast and I'm very physical. And I could do, you know, flips and things. And I can read music and I have a good sense of time, but I'm tone deaf. How I sound in my own head is completely different than I really sound to you. That's true of a lot of us, by the way. But some people have pitch. I don't have pitch. But because I have such good rhythm and because I can read music and because I can dance, I was able to do a couple of big musicals. I did How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. I did Godspell. And it's fun. It's really, really fun to do. But I'm not a Broadway baby, you know. And, you know, that's one reason I left the theater and went back to Hollywood as opposed to going to New York like everybody else, because in New York, you really have to be a triple threat. You really have to sing, dance, and act. And I can only do one of those, you know.
Right.
So I went west, back home. Plus, I know LA like the back of my hand, and I knew where I knew where all the good apartments were and the coolest neighborhoods and stuff.
Okay.
In a good cheap apartment.
So what what is one story you want to reveal that most people don't ask about, but they should be asking about, whether it be something from a Nightmare on Elm Street series, something from you directing one of your feature films? What is one of like the most
No, the
passionate
only thing
stories?
that people should realize is one of the things actors sustain themselves on, and a lot of us don't admit it. You know, we'd like to say we could, get over stuff, but big movie stars, really big movie stars, they lose parts too. And you hear these stories about people that were up for huge roles in famous movies and they didn't get them, or they didn't go on the audition, or they turned them down. That eats at you. That can eat at you. And it also can sustain you. Rejection can sustain you. And there's a couple like that for me. And the people that got the parts did fabulous jobs. And I've taken roles away from actors that are better than I am. But the ones that got away, they never leave you. It's like it was yesterday, and it's still down there simmering in you, and it keeps you hungry well past the point where you're not on unemployment insurance anymore. It still keeps you a little bit hungry. It's that rejection fuels that, I think, a little bit. And the other thing is that you just sort of accumulate wisdom as you go through life, and it just makes you better. And that's for everything. That's true of everything.
All right. I like that. I also read that you were a big King of the Hill fan.
Oh, wait. Oh, I put it away. My wife put it away. I have an all signed King of the Hill cell. It's in that desk right there.
Excellent. Do you have like a favorite moment?
Everybody, I love Bobby Hill.
Right.
Pam Adlon. Oh, I have such a crush. Never met her. And, I'm sure we crossed like ships in the night back in the day, because she's been around, for a while. But I love King of the Hill. Samurai Jack and King of the Hill.
Okay, yeah, Samurai Jack and King of the Hill. I always love this moment in King of the Hill where Bobby finds out about chopped liver at the deli, and he eats too much of it and he gets gout.
Bobby Hill is such an innocent abroad, and you kind of see it through him. He's the least Texas person in it. So he becomes the kind of Guillermo del Toro child witness of the King of the Hill adventures. But it's such a great cast, and Brittany Murphy, oh my God, everybody in that show, and that kind of great flat animation, that simple animation, and yet it becomes that kind of suburban world, that Texas clean, perfect lawn suburban world. Yeah, and there's so much humanity in that show.
Right.
I really liked it a lot.
I'm glad you like that. It seems like in the background of your office, you have acquired this collection of amazing things. What is the most
what you're looking at, that's my black and white wall.
Okay.
So that's really old stuff from the theater and from my 70s starring roles.
Okay.
You can't see this whole side. You can't see is the Freddie wall.
What is the most?
On the floor, there's lots and lots and lots of posters. I love foreign movie posters. I think
I do too.
A couple of them back there against the bookshelf. But I love to get great, crazy images that I haven't seen before in American advertising, and then to see your name written in Russian or in Cambodian or some other language is always fun.
All right, yeah, I like that. What is your most curious possession, your most bizarre possession you've collected over the years?
Well, I have a great tie poster of the phallic Freddie snake. He's like a giant Freddie penis head. And he's swallowing the actress Patricia Arquette from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. I'm saying swallowing. I'm being very, very polite. And Patricia Arquette is in her Peter Pan Wendy flannel nightgown, and she has that beautiful prepubescent adolescent body, and she's arching in pleasure as the giant Freddie penis is sort of swallowing her. So it's kind of reverse fellatio, you know. It's so strange. It's such a strange image. And then in the background is Freddie at the end of a tunnel in silhouette. And then it's all in that beautiful, the beautiful Cambodian script, and our names are on it. But, you know, it's kind of fun to see an Oscar winner like Patricia Arquette being swallowed by a giant Freddie dick.
I like that a lot. And so to round this out, is it okay if I ask Mr. Freddy Krueger a couple fun questions?
Sure.
All right. Mr. Fred, I'm curious, you have haunted many people's dreams, but what do you, Freddie, daydream about?
Residuals. I like them Nightmare on Elm Street residuals. Every day there's a knock, knock, knock on the door. I put my mask on. I put my plague year gloves on and my Freddy glove over them. And I get those residuals. I love them. No, it's Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the gift that just keeps giving.
It does.
Even kept Freddie spry and healthy after all these years.
Keep Freddie spry. Perfect. And my last one for Freddie is, what was your most passionate kill in all of your days?
Well, there's an elongated kill in Nightmare 1 with Tina on the ceiling. And in fact, we shot a real vicious piece of coverage there where they had me drag the cameraman's wife, who took her jeans off and her naked legs with blood on them. And she was a union cameraman and she was allowed to operate the camera. And so what she saw between her legs, POV gynecological stirrups, was the upside down room, Freddie on the ceiling dragging her just before she died, Tina. And that was the point of view. And as I dropped her legs with the blood on them, I had blood on my glove and I blew her a kiss of death. And my fingers, the blades, webbed with the stage theatrical special effects blood, which is thicker than normal blood. And they formed a little bubble and it floated out and went by. They didn't use that in the movie. Wes shot it, but I think he showed it to the censors, and then that was too hardcore. So he used that as an excuse to get other violent images in the movie. But I remember that, and that's sort of my favorite moment, even though it never made the movie. But that whole sequence, you never see Freddie up there. In Wes Craven's New Nightmare, you see him on the ceiling upside down. There's a recall, an homage to that sequence with the girl that's Heather's babysitter in Wes Craven's New Nightmare Part 7. But that you don't see Freddie up there, but that's what's going on. And they never put that in the movie. It's just too strange.
Oh, no, that's perfect. I love that. And that scene is a milestone for sure. And my last fun question for you, Robert, you're just so passionate. You're a purveyor of cinema and motion pictures. What are some of your favorite, some of your most inspiring scenes from movies that can be not just yours, but in anything that you wake up and you think about, whether it be something from Sisters or Rosemary's Baby? Is there a certain scene from movies that always stick with you?
Well, you mentioned Sisters, and there's a great nightmare in that film done with microfiche, the old library way of storing information. There's also a great sequence in that film, split screen, of two cops headed up to Margot Kidder's apartment. While in the apartment, they're trying to hide a bloody body in a white couch, a fold-out couch. So those are two great sequences. There's a shootout in a recent movie called Hold the Dark.
Oh, I love that movie.
And there's a sequence where they go to the Native American reservation in that movie. And he asks a guy to surrender, and the guy won't surrender. And as he's walking back towards all of the local cops parked around on the Indian reservation, the barn door on the second story of the guy's house opens up and he's got a 50 caliber machine gun up there, and he just starts going after the assembled highway patrol officers. And for the next 5 minutes, it's one of the best shootouts. There's that great Kevin Costner shootout at the end of Open Range.
Right.
That's the most recently. It's the best shootout I've seen in films. It's just amazing. Jeffrey Wright from Westworld is in that sequence. Just brilliant stuff.
I love Jeremy Saulnier's work, and that Hold the Dark was wonderful.
Yeah, there's some great stuff in that.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for taking the time to talk with me today. Is there any where you want to send the audience to see you, find you online?
You know, I'm quarantined. You can watch. I'm streaming True Terror with Robert Englund from the Travel Channel now. You can find that on various platforms. True Terror with Robert Englund, 6 episodes. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're getting a little stir crazy. It's all weird stuff in American history we found in newspapers. And that's fun to watch. Obviously, JJ Villard's Fairy Tales coming up on May 10th. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I had to cancel a lot of stuff. I'm doing a big guest star on a big show on cable, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But I also have some personal appearances that maybe we'll get some in at the end of the year. I'm not sure, but definitely next year. We'll probably see me in Germany. You'll see me in Montreal. I hope to get to Chicago and New York and London again. I just was in London, so I just got in and out of London with it. I'm so lucky I didn't get sick. I was in Heathrow and it was empty.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy, yeah.
Well,
I'm fine. So, I think we just have to wait till we get all our testing together,
Right.
Get everybody tested before, and then we can just slowly open up. We should be okay.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the weekend.
Thank you.